Thank you everyone for joining us today for the SD-WAN SASE webinar. I will now hand it over to Cody Harris from the Aspire team to get us started today.
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. Today, we're going to present on SASE, which is the next iteration of SD-WAN. We're very excited to be presenting to you guys today. Just a quick overview of Aspire. So Aspire has been in business since 2004. We are a solutions integrator that basically, kind of fully understands customer needs, technical needs, right? Converts those business and technical needs into outcomes, and delivers those outcomes via technology, right? Through the main technology verticals: enterprise networks, collaboration, cybersecurity, data center and cloud, mobility, and IoT. And so, yeah, like I've personally been at Aspire since 2007. Currently, my title is Director of Digital Architectures. So I'm responsible for pre-sales engineering here at Aspire in regards to our enterprise networking, wireless, and IoT groups. And with that, I'd also like to introduce Rob Lesher, who is also on the team. Rob, if you could just give a couple bars about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining today, and I appreciate your time. My name is Bob Lesher. I'm with Aspire roughly about a year now, going into my second year here. Prior to this, I have well over 20 years experience in the IT field. Some of that, about 6 years, give or take, was at a nuclear power plant for a Fortune 100 utility. So, I understand the need for security very, very well. I spent a lot of time focusing on that. So that being said, let's move on with our presentation here.
Absolutely. Sounds good, Rob. Thank you. So, yeah, there's going to be three main points in our agenda, right? So we'll talk about SD-WAN. To a certain extent, this is kind of, what's already been established, right, as the new WAN architecture that customers, should be moving to. From there, we'll layer on what SASE is, the benefits that SASE delivers, right, kind of in addition to SD-WAN. And then from there, we'll go to the beyond, right? So, what's coming in the future? What are additional maybe components of features that we can add onto SASE, right, to provide, again, additional value and benefit to our customers. So with that, SD-WAN. So Bob, if you could, maybe you could just kind of give us the quick rundown of SD-WAN, the kind of, historical, development of SD-WAN as a WAN technology, right? Kind of where we were a couple of years ago, and then also kind of where we are now.
Okay. Yeah, when I first got into IT, I mean, the way that networking as a whole, let alone mobile locations, was handled was entirely different. You had like your remote locations, and then you had your main data center, and in a large enough organization, you had a backup data center and sometimes a tertiary. And the way that the design and the architecture was approached was, you kind of had all of these locations, you had users at these locations, you had data, and then you had like applications that all of these users had to access, and then internet as well. So a tunnel was built from remote locations back to your main data center, back to your main location, and then all your traffic was kind of pumped out of your firewall. That was the egress point that, all of the protections and data would pass through for the checks and balances in your organization. So, that being said, that one firewall basically handled everything from your entire organization. All of your branch locations, all of your mobile users, you had to have something to get that traffic back to there. So more or less what had happened over time was, you needed the addition of redundancy. So SD-WAN came into play. With SD-WAN, your locations needed a way to get that traffic back. And one of the easiest ways and quickest ways to set that link up was across a MPLS link. So that was a layer 2 link, and MPLS traditionally has been very, very expensive. So, you set up these locations with SD-WAN, you pump your traffic back to your main data center, and then, you still push it out of that main firewall. you know, it was really an efficient way to use your bandwidth. It required more bandwidth in mobile locations, including your main location, because, you know, everything coming through there being pumped out. Well, SASE addressed a lot of the design and architecture flaws, you know, with the initial designs and with your initial SD-WAN designs. So instead of, you know, having these locations, mobile users, which, you know, really has been exacerbated with, you know, COVID coming along, now you have a lot of cloud apps as well. And a lot of your applications that once were housed in your main data center have been moved to the cloud. You know, for instance, Office 365, almost, you know, every organization at this point is using some fashion of cloud. And we really need an efficient way and an architecture to account for this. And, you know, the architecture that accounts for this, especially given the current environment, really has to have security top of mind. So, you know, that being said, SASE came along to really identify a lot of the problems with the initial architecture and initial designs and address all that, but not just security as an add-on or an afterthought, but, you know, security top of mind. So, you know, that's where SASE came in. And that's really, you know, the evolution from traditional networking to SD-WAN, you know, to now the SASE architecture.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing, what's resonating with me is, you know, basically where customers where customer users are working from has been changing quite a bit. Right. Traditionally, everybody went to the headquarters. Right. They worked in their cubicle or their office, depending on the level they were at or how long they were there, how tenured they were. Right. And all your applications and data were also typically held on-prem or within some sort of, you know, co-located data center. Right. You know, now what we're seeing is that, you know, with the advent of you know, SaaS offerings, right, to your point, O365, Dropbox, I mean, Google, you know, Google Docs, you name it, right, whatever it is, we now have this kind of distributed workforce, right, but also a kind of distributed location of access for data and applications, right, which is, you know, it's interesting. It's very interesting to me because, you know, you and I are both in this industry a long time, and you know, we remember these old traditional WAN architectures that were predominantly based on MPLS and DMVPN, and they worked fine, right? But to your point, they created specific bottlenecks. And now the distribution of the apps and data and the distribution of where these workers work from kind of necessitated a re-architecture of WAN, right? And from my perspective, that's where SD-WAN came in a couple of years ago, right? And then now we're into kind of the next evolution of SD-WAN, which would be SASE, right? Now here at Aspire, we kind of have two main flavors of SD-WAN currently, right? So those two main flavors are Cisco SD-WAN or Viptela, right, and Meraki. So I was hoping that maybe you could just go through and give us some of maybe the pros and cons of both, maybe the benefits, maybe, you know, for the customers that are on the webinar, maybe some of the things they should be thinking about in terms of potentially making a decision on those two technologies.
Absolutely. So, you know, there's basically two offerings from Cisco at this time for SD-WAN and SASE. You have the Meraki offering and you have the Viptela offering. So let me start with Meraki. Meraki, especially during COVID times, a lot of customers found themselves in a situation where, you know, they had a location that they needed to turn up or an acquisition, and it may have been across a border. Like, for instance, you know, during COVID, when it initially, you know, started locking down the entire globe, I had customers that had offices in Canada, had offices in Mexico. And, you know, one of the greatest features with Meraki is simplicity. You can take this device, order it, set it up before it even gets to the location, and you don't need somebody who's highly technical. You don't need a CCIE to deploy this in your environment. You literally plug it in. If it can grab an address and reach the internet, you can configure it remotely. That's really powerful. When you have a global pandemic where you can't get to these locations due to restrictions, you know, that simplicity and ease of deployment and security that's built right in, really it made a lot of IT directors' jobs a lot easier. In addition to that, the scalability. For instance, with Meraki, you can look at the full mesh VPN. Let's say, you need to have site A talk to site B. It's literally creating a subnet and checking a box, and Meraki does the rest for you. Now, the Viptela solution, one of the biggest features of Viptela is the amount of interfaces that it supports. You have more interfaces, so it's more designed for a enterprise or larger environment, larger deployment, larger scale. But it also gives you the granularity of control with some certain features and functionality that Meraki doesn't have built into the interface. But I think it really comes down to the target application for these. I mean, what's your take on that as well?
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, to me, that's I think that Meraki and Viptela are always in play in any conversation we have with our customers, right? Whether it comes to traditional WAN infrastructure, whether it comes to wireless, whether it comes to access lane switching infrastructure, right? It doesn't make a difference. They're both exorbitantly viable options. They're both very strong. They're both very good at what they do. And for 80% of our customers, we feel like Meraki's probably going to be the best fit. And I think Meraki also kind of has that mantra of, we're going to fit for the 80% of the customers out there. The other 20% that need that additional granularity of control, need those additional interfaces, right, for, whether it's, you want to bring in disparate ISPs, right, for redundancy, and you need more than two. Now, Meraki is releasing some devices that have additional interfaces there, right, but traditionally, you would leverage Viptela if you needed a more kind of, redundant, path out to the internet and path out to your WAN. So, they're both very viable, and ultimately, to your point, Bob, I mean, this is why we're experts in both, right? Because there's going to be certain customers where Meraki is going to be the perfect fit. There's going to be certain customers where Viptela is the perfect fit, right? And to a certain extent, it's our job of kind of understanding both, right? Kind of understanding those initial customer requirements when we're having those conversations, and then being able to apply, the proper solution for that particular customer. And look, there may be situations where we offer options for both, right? Absolutely possible. Maybe a situation where we're kind of on the fence a little bit, and maybe there's other factors that are going to make the decision, right? Like price, something like that. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they're both absolutely, fantastic products, and I think they have their strengths and their applications.
Absolutely. So, I've been talking about SD-WAN here. Do you want to dig into the SASE solution?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Go through some of the...
I've been a big SD-WAN proponent for a few years now. I mean, I kind of make the joke, this thing keeps incrementing, unfortunately here, but I'm not sure why it's doing this.
We can design a enterprise global solution, but we can't stop PowerPoint from changing slides on us.
Copy that. Well, let's just talk about it. So I've been a big proponent of SD-WAN for quite a while now. I actually have a couple, internal bets with people on the efficacy of SD-WAN. That having been said, SASE is very, very compelling from the perspective of it takes that SD-WAN architecture, which is kind of like that new best-in-breed, very flexible, very nimble WAN architecture, right, and adds umbrella SIG. Right, so we are now taking some subset of your traffic. It doesn't have to be 100% of your traffic. Any traffic that's intended to, that's user-based traffic, that's personal traffic. We're not necessarily going to send that through umbrella SIG, but we're going to take some subset of your traffic. We're going to send it up to umbrella SIG. Umbrella SIG, for those of you that don't know, stands for Secure Internet Gateway. Right, so this is kind of a Cisco's way of securing your traffic, providing deep packet inspection in the cloud, right? So we're now taking
let me jump into that. So umbrella SIG is a fully functional cloud delivered SaaS, a 4 through 7 layer firewall that, basically you can turn that up to any location right to the cloud. So, when you talk SASE solution, when you talk SaaS, Umbrella Sig is really a powerful product that's easily deployed. And I just, I didn't want to miss out on that. I'm sorry to, steal your thunder here a little bit, but I just wanted to really, explain, that it's not just, a SaaS solution or, a SASE solution, but it is a fully functional 4-7 firewall. So,
Absolutely.
And it also does SSL decryption. And the reason SSL decryption is important, almost all of your traffic is using port 443. So the days of just looking at HTTP traffic, they're gone. Everybody is using SSL out to the web. And if you don't have the SSL decryption, you're not going to have visibility into that traffic. And I'm sorry, Cody, I'll throw it back to you here. I apologize.
No, that's
for that.
perfect. That's perfect. I appreciate that. Yeah, and it's kind of good to know that, Umbrella Sig has its own legs to stand on, right? Umbrella Sig is something that customers could purchase, outside of an SD-WAN solution, right? But when you kind of merge SD-WAN WAN architecture with SASE, it becomes this, very robust, very nimble, very flexible, very secure WAN architecture that, is kind of at this point best in breed. Some of the things that we'd want to potentially dive into is the additional security components that are within Umbrella Sig, right? Because when you hear Umbrella Sig, you very often think, oh, it's just DNS protection with Umbrella, right? Absolutely the case. That's 100% in there. In addition to that, it has, to Bob's point, it has layer 4-7 firewall, right? So this is a cloud-delivered firewall. It also provides CASB, right, which is Cloud Access Security Broker. It provides a secure web gateway, right? So it's checking all your traffic in and out of the internet, right, to make sure that traffic is secure. And finally, it provides zero trust with a product called Duo, right? So what Zero Trust does is kind of provides that multi-factor authentication. So no longer are we beholden to just authenticating with username and password, right? We are now adding additional layers onto that with device authentication in addition to username and password and or biometrics, right? So we can also now authenticate via biometrics, the mobile device authentication and the username password, right? So very powerful, very secure, very difficult to hack, of course, because somebody would have to, A, know your username and password, right? B, they would have to have your device for the device authentication. And finally, they'd have to probably take your fingerprints off and put it on their own fingers in order to authenticate.
It's, in addition to that, it's super flexible too. So natively, it has support for, I forget how many applications, but a whole host of applications, including WordPress. So like, let's say, you have a bunch of WordPress websites. You can add Duo right into your WordPress deployment in less than 5 minutes with zero outage to protect that WordPress deployment. So, there's a lot of applications for it. I personally had one customer about a year ago. They were using Office 365 in the cloud. Their financial director was targeted. They didn't have Duo, and they were taken across for $100,000. Duo would have stopped that in its tracks. So, very powerful software, very powerful solution, integrates seamlessly into the SASE solution, all great stuff.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, so, we also wanted to dive into a little bit, a compare and contrast or, why we would leverage SASE over SD-WAN, right, in customer environments and in our customer conversations. Some of these things we already touched on, right? Obviously, the flexibility of the architecture is key, right? The security of the architecture is key. What are some other kind of selling points of SASE over traditional SD-WAN?
Cost reduction, obviously. I mean, if you're reducing the amount of MPLS circuits you have and you can replace them with like FiOS or any, cable circuit, it doesn't matter. It can be built on top of that. So, you have the reduction of cost. You have collapsing multiple devices into one device. So, back in the day, we had like WAN optimization, you had a firewall, you had all of these devices, you had licensing, and, each one had like some sort of bandwidth limitation to it with an additional license. So you have this whole host of stuff that you just combine into one device that's designed to handle everything that all of these devices handle. So, you know, it reduces your administrative overhead. It reduces the workload that's on your NOC or on your SOC. You know, so it's all great stuff. I mean, it is designed to be more secure, cost effective, easy to deploy, and simple to manage. Yeah. It's the future, and it's here right now.
Yeah, I agree. It absolutely is the future. It is here right now. I think, yeah, to your point, the cost reduction is an easy selling point for customers, right? You know, getting off their expensive legacy MPLS connections and you know, that you were kind of beholden to, you know, which ISP could provide these connections in which state, right? I mean, obviously for our customers that have, you know, are distributed across the US or across the globe, you know, when you bring up these new sites, you're kind of beholden to the ISP within the area to whether or not they had MPLS, whether or not it was a good MPLS connection,
anymore.
How much. Doesn't matter, right? Now it doesn't matter if the connection is a, you know, a broadband commodity internet circuit, a 4G connection, 5G connection. Obviously, MPLS is still viable. And we still have customers that want to hold on to those old MPLS connections for a reason. And that's okay as well, right? So we're not necessarily, you know, that really speaks to that nimbleness and that flexibility, and that ultimately the underlying transport layer really no longer matters. You know, SASE and SD-WAN is going to function regardless of what type of connection you have out to the internet.
It's funny that you brought up MPLS, that people are holding on to that. You know, the number one thing that I hear with folks wanting to hold on to an MPLS connection is SLA. You got that SLA. Yeah, well, I've never 100%. Been, you know, sitting in the seat in network operations where that SLA actually got the circuit up any quicker. So I'd rather have 3, you know, cable connections with no SLA over that one expensive connection with an SLA. So
understood. Yep, understood. Okay, so that was great, very, very enlightening, a lot of good information there. I think from here we just wanted to go to kind of the beyond, right? What are the next steps? What are you know, additional components we can layer onto our SASE environment or SD-WAN environment? So you know, is there another option that we could add on to provide kind of additional, you know, features?
So Cisco has a new product. It's called ThousandEyes. If you haven't heard of it yet, you need to check it out. It's really cool. The amount of visibility that it gives you into your underlay, your overlay, and cloud, WAN, LAN, the amount of information that it produces, it's amazing. If you'd like to see a demo of it, I'd be more than happy to give you a demo. It can be deployed on a browser extension, on Raspberry Pi. Like, let's say you have a remote location that you don't have VMware. You can put a Raspberry Pi out there. It's really lightweight, simple to deploy. I mean, you can literally stand this up in like 5 minutes. And the amount of information and visibility into your environment, problems that you can derive from it, it will blow your mind. Back when I was doing network operations, you know, for the nuclear power plant, you'd have a site go down, or you'd have a circuit go down, or you wouldn't be able to get to something. So the next couple hours, you were just spending that time like chasing the problem. This will tell you immediately exactly where it is. You'll know almost the second it happens what's going on, why it happened, and it's just really, really cool stuff. So, you know, if anybody would like to see more of that, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You know, I'd be happy to give you a demo and dig into that further. But the application with SAS and SASE with ThousandEyes, you know, it's delivered from the cloud. It's natively implemented into this entire solution. And again, you know, the visibility is really what ThousandEyes is made for.
Right. Understood. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that. So, you know, we've actually, you know, seen it in action, and it's been very interesting, you know, because customers have responded back to us and said, to your kind of point earlier with when you were working in the operations center at the power plant, you know, that, you know, before it would take us potentially 3 or 4 hours to, you know, find the root cause of an issue, right? Now with ThousandEyes, because it shows you kind of a hop by hop as your traffic is traversing both your internal network as well as the internet, right? You can ascertain exactly where that traffic is failing, exactly where that traffic is slowing down, right? Because it's not just failed traffic, it's also, you know, slow traffic. and you can make determination on how you need to adjust your network in order to resolve those issues quickly.
I want to touch on this real quick. So one troubleshooting session that we had actually lasted for months, not 3 to 4 hours. We had an application. It was a home-built application. It was ran on .NET, and we had a load balancer up front, and all the traffic was round-robining from that load balancer back to .NET servers, and it was breaking the session. So instead of sending it to an established session, it was sending it to the wrong .NET server. We spent months. You would have known that immediately with this. I remember beating my head off the wall for a long time. So I kind of wish this would have been available, back when I was sitting in the seat.
Absolutely. Yeah. So to that point, I mean, so we have, a bunch of customers on the call today, right? Is there any way that our customers can kind of, get engaged, look, see, feel SD-WAN, feel SASE for themselves? What would they do in order to kind of, get their skin in the game without a large, initial financial investment?
Okay, so, I run into customers all the time. No customer has an unlimited budget, unlimited security spend. So, I like to take the approach of where are you in your security practice? What is your threat surface? And really dig into that to understand that. And then, once I get that understanding, there's some low-hanging fruit. For instance, Umbrella. It's really easy to deploy, it's low cost, and it's a high-impact solution. So when you start looking at security spend, if you don't have Umbrella, if you don't have Secure Endpoint, and you don't have Duo, I would say immediately stop what you're doing and go look into these solutions, because given the current environment, I just want to touch on Russia. They invaded today. There's all kinds of cyber espionage campaigns going on. You have nation-state threat actors like North Korea that literally have no income, so their way of creating an income is through ransomware and being a threat actor. So these easy to implement, low-cost solutions, again, Duo, Umbrella, AMP for endpoints or Secure Endpoint, they're really easy to implement. I would highly recommend that you start looking at these solutions ASAP.
Okay, so that's good from a security perspective, but what about from a WAN perspective?
From a WAN perspective, well, I mean, there's Thousand Eyes is easy to implement. Again, you get that visibility. If you're not running SASE or SD-WAN, I'd be more than happy to talk to you and understand your environment. But Meraki is a really simple solution, and we do offer a free trial. So, if you've been kicking the tires on this or, thinking about how you can make your environment better, give us a call. We'd be more than happy to get you a free trial. You can run it for yourself, see exactly how easy it is to deploy, how easy it is to set up, manage. And if you don't have the in-house technical staff to do so, we can set it up and manage it for you. We have a fully staffed SOC and managed service solution.
That's perfect. Yep. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Okay. With that, we would like to turn it over to the attendees here for any Q&As that we have. Kathy, is there any questions that anybody posed?
Yeah, I know. Please feel free to stay on. I know we're hitting 11:31 right now, but we did have a few questions come through, and I'd love to hand them over to Cody. So first one in, can Aspire manage my SASE environment? I know we touched a little bit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So to Bob's point earlier, Aspire has a full knock and SOC, manned 24/7 by our own internal resources. We do not offshore. We do not outsource. So everybody within our knock and SOC, they are 100% an Aspire employee. So all the stuff we talked about today, whether it be the SD-WAN components, whether it be Viptela, Meraki, any of the Umbrella part, AMP for endpoints, any of the things that Bob mentioned earlier, Umbrella, Sig, all can be managed from Aspire's NOC or SOC. Obviously, the NOC would handle the kind of day-and-day care feeding of the actual WAN devices, right? And then the SOC would actually handle securing those with our MDR solution. So that's managed detection and response. Ultimately, we're taking security feeds, right, from the critical security infrastructure within the customer environment. we are taking those security feeds, and then we are providing contextualization and correlation of events through a SOC analyst, right? So a SOC analyst takes a look at all these events, right, and they're basically weeding out false positives. We find that many of our customers that do not have a SOC don't have the means to create a SOC in-house, right? They may have some security tools, but unless you have a team that's dedicated to reviewing these logs on a regular basis, unfortunately, oftentimes the warning signs that will pop up in those tools will be lost because there's too many false positives. So ultimately, what those SOC analysts do is they take a look at all those security feeds, weed out all the false positives, and then alert customers to what are true positives, what are really the things that customer should particularly be concerned about and aware of, and then finally provide feedback on how they should remediate those issues.
Great. Another question we had come in was, how long does it take to implement SASE?
That's a great question, Bob. You want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it really depends on which component of SASE, because SASE is an architecture. It's not I mean, it is a solution, but it's a solution, that is built from multiple architectures. So if you're talking, something like DNS protection with Umbrella, you can do that immediately with literally zero downtime. It can be, it's like flipping a switch, and now you're protected. So it depends on the environment, but most of these solutions are very low effort deployment solutions with minimal to zero downtime.
Great.
Now, if you're cutting over like a branch site, I mean, clearly, you're going to have downtime to do that. So I do want to touch on that, but a lot of your SASE solutions, with the exception of, turning up a branch, are low to zero downtime.
Mm-hmm. And going into that, just one question that came through was they have a production environment that requires zero downtime. So would implementation of SASE allow for that?
With the exception of doing a WAN cutover, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then can Aspire assess our environment to identify potential security threats?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. Please put them in contact with me, and I'll run with that. I like to do an in-depth discovery session where I kind of step through all of the different architectures to understand, your full business environment, exactly where you are in your security practice, understand, where your users are, your speeds and feeds, data center, voice, everything. I step all the way through it. And then once I have an understanding of where you are, at that point, I can make recommendations, what would make sense, and try to work within your budget. Because again, nobody has an unlimited budget. I wish they did. That'd be great.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. And that goes into our final question that we have. I know we're 5 minutes over, so we appreciate everyone hanging on. But are there any simple low budget solutions that can be implemented into our environment? If you want to just touch on that.
Yeah, I'll grab this one as well. Sorry, buddy. Low budget, no budget. My recommendation would be, knowledge campaign. So it costs literally nothing to send an email or have a meeting with all of your users, all of your employees, and just tell them to be vigilant. Don't just click links. Make sure, the email that has the link that you're clicking on is from who it's supposed to be. Don't let people tailgate. Knowledge campaigns, simple, easy to implement. If you don't feel that you have the capacity to do so, contact us. We partner with KnowBe4. It's a great product. It will give you visibility into who's clicking on links they shouldn't be clicking on. And, you can tailor the education platform for your user environment. So, yeah, it's, that I would highly recommend spending some time on knowledge campaigns. It's low effort, low budget with a high impact, especially since 80% or more of all ransomware attacks started with some form of social engineering, whether it be spear phishing or phishing.
Great. That's all the questions that came through on my end, but I'll turn it over to you guys to let everybody know how they can connect with us.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, so that that ends the session for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. We hope everybody found it, valuable and they gained some knowledge on what the solution entails. So if anybody would like to have any further conversations with us, Bob and I are both available at any time. You would just contact us at info@aspiretransforms.com. That kicks an email off to our team, and then we would engage with you directly from there. And if you want just any additional information on Aspire, you can visit our website at www.aspiretransforms.com. And within there, you'll find, a lot of previous content that we created similar to the webinar we did today, in addition to, all the value that we can provide to customers from a technology perspective. So
just want to add one more thing.
Yep, go ahead, Bob.
I'm sorry, Cody. Just want to add one more thing. And if you'd like a free trial with Meraki, don't hesitate to contact us. We'll set that up for you.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Okay.
Great.
With that, we'll close the webinar. And thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.